We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Amud Beis in Meseches Pesachim. This is Pesachim Daf 50b. The Mishnah continues, Val Yeshana Adam Mipnei HaMachlokas. A person should not change from the minhag of the place he is in, because that will cause arguments. Now Rashi here notes the obvious contradiction. Val Yeshana Adam B'Gemara Parach. The Gemara will ask, Mimakom Shein Osin Lamakom Sheosin. It said that if a person goes from a place where they don't do malacha to a place where they do malacha, he should be strict and not do malacha. V'iyunami Al Yeshana. So this guy, according to the second line of the Mishnah, he should not change from what he does in the place that he is. V'li'avid, he should be allowed to do malacha. If he's allowed to take on, or if he's supposed to take on the customs of the place he's going, that would not mean you should always be strict. That would mean in some cases you should be lenient. You should do malacha like everybody else. Didn't the Mishnah just say that he should always be strict, even the strictness of the place that he left from, not the place that he's going to? So that seems to be a contradiction the Gemara will address. Kayotsebo, the Mishnah says similarly, Hamolich Peiros Shvius, Mimakom Shekalu Lamakom Shelo Kalu. Let's say a person takes the fruits of Shvius from an area where there's no longer food for the wild animals to an area where there is food out in the fields for the wild animals. Those are different halachas. Or Mimakom Shelo Kalu Lamakom Shekalu. Or the opposite, he takes from a place where the food has not finished to a place where it has finished for the animals. Chayev Levar, he always has to be strict and destroy these Peiros Shvius. Rashi over here explains, Hamolich Peiros Shvius, Mimakom Shekalu L'chayim Min Asad. He takes it from a place where the chayos no longer have the food available to them in the fields. The chayavin b'nei hamakom levar min habayis. The halacha is that once the food of Shemitah year runs out in the fields for the wild animals, the people have to destroy it from their houses as well. But this guy goes now to a place where it hasn't yet finished in the open, in the fields. Those people in that area, they're still eating the food in the house. So chayav levar, he's got to destroy it. Mishum chumrei makom shiyatz misham. Again, he has to be strict for the place that he left from. He always has to take on the stringencies. Rabbi Yehuda says, Tzei v'havei lecha af'ata, go out and bring even you. And the Gemara will explain what this line means. Gemara says, Mai irya arvei psachim afilo arvei shabbos v'arvei yomim tovim nami. Why does the Mishnah have to talk about Erev Pesach, that you shouldn't do work after Chatzos? This is not only on Erev Pesach, it's true on Erev Shabbos, it's true on any Erev Yontif, so it should be anywhere. The Tanya we learned in a Braisa, if somebody does malach on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif from Mincha and onward, meaning 9.5 hours in the day and onward, Eino roa simin bracha liolam, he will not see a sign of blessing from that work at all. So you see that there's already a prohibition to do work from Mincha Lamala on any Erev Shabbos and Yontif. What is unique about Erev Pesach? So the Gemara says, Hasa min Mincha Lamala hu da'aser samach lemincha lo. Over there, it's only a problem from Mincha and onward, but near Mincha is fine. Hacha mechatzos, here when it comes to Erev Pesach, there's a problem already to do malacha from chatzos. Inami, or hasam simin bracha hu delo chazi aval shamutei lo meshamtinale. When it comes to Erev Shabbos and Erev Yontif, he's not going to see a bracha, but we're not going to excommunicate the guy. Hacha shamutei nami meshamtinale. Over here, when it comes to Erev Pesach, we're even going to excommunicate him if he does malacha after chatzos. Rashi over here says, Ma'ir ya'arvei psachim dekatani ad chatzos b'minhaga. Until chatzos, that depends on your minhag. Do you do malach until chatzos or not? Mechlal de mechatzos ulal and aser. That implies that from chatzos and onward on Erev Pesach, it is aser. There's a problem, according to everybody, to do malacha. Gufa, returning to this issue itself, if somebody does malach on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yontif from Mincha and onward, Uvemotzai Shabbos, Uvemotzai Yontiv. Let's say a person does malacha right after Shabbos or right after Yontiv. Uvemotzai Yom HaKippurim, where he does malacha right after Yom Kippur. Uvechol Makam Sheyesham Nindur Aveira. Or in any situation where a person does a malacha where it seems there might be an Aveira, it's so close to Shabbos, so close to Yontiv that he might actually be violating Shabbos or Yontiv. La'asuyei Tainas Tzibor. That would include even a person who does malacha on a Tainas Tzibor. Rashi says we're talking here, they used to fast for rain, so you're not supposed to do malacha. Eino roa simin bracha liolam. In all of these situations, person is not going to see a simin bracha from the work at all. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tana Rabbana, we learned in a Braisa, Yesh Zariz v'niskar, there are people who are diligent and they're rewarded for it. V'yesh Zariz v'nifsad, some people are diligent and they lose out because of it. Yesh Shafal v'niskar, some people are lazy and they're rewarded for it. V'yesh Shafal v'nifsad, and some people are lazy and they lose out. Zariz v'niskar, what's an example of somebody who's diligent and he gets rewarded? Da'avid kulei shabsa, that's a person who works all week. V'lo avid b'malei shabsa, but he refrains from doing work on Erev Shabbos. Zariz v'nifsad, what's what's an example of someone who's diligent and loses out? Da'avid kule shabsa v'yavid b'malei shabsa. He does work all week, and he even does work on Friday. Now he loses out because he's doing work on Friday when he might end up doing work. You're not supposed to work on Friday when it's getting close to Shabbos. Shafal v'niskar, somebody who's lazy and he gets rewarded. Da'avid kule shabsa v'loavid b'malei shabsa. The guy does no work all week, and he does no work on Erev Shabbos either. He's rewarded because he refrains from work on Erev Shabbos. Shafal v'nifsad, someone who's lazy and he loses out. Da'avid kule shabsa, he does no work the whole week. V'yavid b'malei shabsa. Then he decides he's going to do some work on Erev Shabbos. That's already going to be problematic. Amar Rava said, Hani noshi de mechuza, these women of mechuza, afagav de lo avdan avidita b'malei shabsa, even though they don't work on Erev Shabbos, mishum mefankusahu. That's really just out of laziness. It's out of their nature. Ta'akol yomanami lo ka'avdan, because they don't work at all any days of the week. So there's nothing to praise them about the fact that they refrain from work on Erev Shabbos. Afilu hachi, nevertheless, shafal v'niskar karinalu. Even nevertheless, these women who are not doing work on Erev Shabbos, they're considered lazy, but they're rewarded for it. They're called a shafal v'niskar. That is something that they get rewarded from, even though they're not doing it with the right intentions. But the fact is, they refrain from doing work on Erev Shabbos. Rava Ramiksiv. Rava had the following contradiction in Psukim. Ki gadol ad shamayim chazdecha. It says in one pasuk that until shamayim your kindness is great. Uchsiv, and another pasuk says Ki gadol me'al shamayim chazdecha. It's even greater than the shamayim. It's above the shamayim. So what's going on? So the Gemara says Haketzad, how so? Kan ba'osin lishma. One is talking about people who do mitzvahs lishma. The kan ba'osin shalo lishma. But the other one is talking about those who do mitzvahs shalo lishma. Both are great, but if you do it lishma, it's even greater. That's ki gadol ad shamayim, until the heavens your chesed is great. That's if you do it shalo lishma. Me'al shamayim, it's even greater than the heavens. That's if you do chesed even lishma. Uchid Rav Yehuda, like Rav Yehuda says, Diyamar Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Liolam yasuk adam b'torah mitzvahs. A person should always do Torah and mitzvahs. Afal pi shelo lishma, even though he's doing it not lishma, not for the proper intention. Shemitoch shelo lishma ba lishma. When a person does something not lishma, eventually he'll come to do it with the right intentions. He'll come to do it lishma. Tana Rabbanim, we learned in a braysa, mitzapeh l'schar ishto v'rechaim. If somebody looks forward to getting money, either from work that his wife does or from the work of a millstone, eino roesim and bracha liolim. He will not see any blessing from that work forever. Schar ishto, what are we referring to when we talk about schar ishto? Maskulto, we refer to weights. Rashi over here explains, Maskulto notelas moznayim biyada. She takes the scales in her hand, umhaleches b'shuk la'askiron l'chol atzrichen. And she takes it to the marketplace to rent out the scale to anyone who needs it. Schar muatu, this is a very little payment you're going to get for this. Umisbaze ishto al schar muat, and his wife is being disgraced for making such little money. The idea here is, it's a terrible thing to send your wife out to make money in such a fashion that's disgraceful. So that's why you're not going to see a siman bracha. Rechaya, what are we talking about when we talk about a millstone? Igarta, similarly, we're talking about the renting it out. Rashi says, Igarta schar rechayim shemaskirin torach gadol u'schar muat. You rent it out to use this. You rent it out to use this millstone that people can use it, and you get paid very little. Avol kona rechayim u'mocher. Now, if you buy one and you sell it, hareu kashar pragmati. That's not a problem. That's like doing any kind of business. But to rent it out, to hire it out, again, that's already a kind of business that's not going to see any siman bracha. Aval avdu mizavna. However, let's say the person's wife does work and she sells the items that she creates. Ishtabuchem mishtabach bakra. That the pasuk praises. Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, sodin osav atimkar. She makes sodin. She makes these fabrics and she sells them. That's already a good thing. That's praiseworthy. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Tana Rabbanim, we learned in a braysa, hamistakir bekonim uvekankanim. If somebody makes money with rods or jugs, eino roesim and bracha liolam. Again, he's not going to see any siman bracha. My time, what's the reason? Kevan de nafesh apachzayu. Since the volume is great, they take up a lot of space. People think you're selling more than you really are. Shalta behu eina. There's like an ayin hara. People look at it, they see all these items that you have, creates an ayin hara, and then you're not going to get a siman bracha. Tana Rabbanim, we learned in a braysa, Tagre Simto, Megadle Behema Daka, the Kotzitse Ilanos Tovos. Tagre Simta are merchants, they work right in these alleys, right in the public, everyone sees them. Megadle Behema Daka, those who raise these small animals, people don't like the small animals, they create damage. And Kotzitse Ilanos Tovos is people who cut down nice trees to sell the wood. All of these things, and also people who always try to take the best portion. Anytime you have a group of people dividing something, this particular individual tries to always get the best portion. So all these types of individuals, Eino Roa Siman Bracha Liolam. He's not going to see a Siman Bracha forever. My time, and what's the reason to Tobe Inchi? Again, people are always looking at these people in a bad fashion. Why is this person doing the person who's selling things in public, everyone's looking at him. Why is this person selling Behemadaka, which caused damage? Person is cutting down these nice trees. People are always looking upon such a person with wonder, with surprise, in a negative fashion. And also, when somebody is always trying to take the best portion, when they're dividing things up, people do not look at that person in such a good way, creates an ayin hara, and the person's not going to get a simin bracha. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Taner Rabbanan, we learned in a brisa, Dalid prutos ein bahen simin bracha liolam. There are 4 prutos. Pruta is a small denomination of money that, again, if you take that kind of money, you're not going to see a simin bracha. Schar kosvin, number 1, the reward for those, or the payment for those who write Sefer Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzos. We'll talk about that. Uschar meturgamanin, people get paid to be a meturgam. A meturgam is somebody on Shabbos. They would stand in front of the Talmud Chacham and they would say loudly the drasha so everyone could hear it. Uschar yesomim, and then the payment that goes to someone who's doing business with the property of Yisomim, with the apotropos who's taking care of the property of Yisomim. You're doing some kind of business and you're taking some reward for that. Umos habos mimedinas hayam. And finally, if someone makes money from items which are being sent overseas. So the Gemara says, Bishlam maschar meturgamanin. We understand the problem of taking payment for being a meturgaman. Misham de michsi kaschar Shabbos. It looks like you're taking payment for doing work on Shabbos, so it's not something that's so good. Umos yisomim nami. Also, when you're making money off the property of yisomim, lav b'nei mechilanin. The yisomim are not people who are even able to be mochel. They're underage. They don't have the ability to be mochel or to do business on their own, and therefore, again, if you're going to take any property from them, they won't be able to be mochel you if you take any inadvertently, and then that's why you're not going to have a simin bracha. Mos habos mimedinas hayam. We also understand if you have money that comes from business overseas, mishum delav kol yomim misrachish nisi. You can't always rely on a miracle. If you're doing business overseas, all kinds of sakana, all kinds of danger can happen, and so you can't rely on that. Elos schar kosvin my time. But the people who write Sefer Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzos, what is the reason that they don't see a simin bracha? Amar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi says, Chavdalet Tanios Yashvu Anshe Knesset Hagadola. The Anshe Knesset Hagadola, they sat in 24 fasts. Al Kosvei Svarim Tefillin and Mezuzah Shelo Yisashru. They daven that the people who write Sefer Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzah should not become wealthy. Shel Moli Misashrin in Kosvin, because if they become wealthy, they're not going to write these things anymore. They won't need to work. So therefore, there was this prayer that they shouldn't become wealthy, and that's why it says in this brisa they're not going to see a simin bracha. Gemara continues at the two dots. Taner Rabbanan Kosvei Svarim Tefillin and Mezuzos. It says those who write the Sefer Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzos, Hein v'tagrein v'tagri tagrein, them and those who do business with them, the merchants of them, v'chol ha'oskin b'melechas shamayim, and anyone who deals with malacha that has to do with shamayim, with heaven, leisuye mochrei techelas, even the people who are selling techelas for tzitzis, einon roen simin bracha liolam, they're not going to see a simin bracha. V'yamoskin l'shma roen, but if they do it l'shma, if they do the mitzvah just for the purpose of spreading the mitzvah so everyone can do the mitzvah, then already they'll see a simin bracha. Gemara continues at the two dots. Bnei Baishan, the children of Baishan, Nogdelo Hava Ozlin Mitzur Litzidon Memale Shabsa. So the people of Baishan, they used to have a minhag. They wouldn't go from Tzur to Tzidon, which was the day of the marketplace on Friday. That was the time of the marketplace. They wouldn't go on Friday to do business, these people of Baishan. So Asu Benayu Kamed Rabbi Yochanan. So the children of these people came before Rabbi Yochanan. Amrulo, and they said to him, they said to Rabbi Yochanan, Avohasin Afshar Lahu, our fathers, they were very wealthy, and they were able to refrain from doing business on Friday. Anan Lo Afshar, we don't have so much money, we're not able to. Are we allowed to stop this minhag, and are we allowed to go to the marketplace and do this business on Friday? Amar Lahu, so he said to them, Kvar Kiblu Avosechem Aleim. Your fathers already accepted this minhag upon themselves. Shenemar, like it says, Shema B'ni Musar Avicha V'Altitosh Torah Simech. It says, you should listen to these traditions of your fathers. Therefore, since your fathers already had this minhag, you should continue the minhag, even though it's difficult for you and it's just a chumrah. But since your fathers began such a minhag, you should continue it. Gemara continues with a similar story. Bnei Chozai, the people of Chozai, Nohagi Demefarshi Chala Me'aroza. They had a minhag that they would separate challah from rice, which wasn't really required. Asu v'amru leila Rav Yosef. They came to Rav Yosef and they said, this is the minhag. Do we need to continue this minhag? Amar Lui said to them, Nechle zar be'apayu. Let a non-Kohen eat it right in front of them to show them this is a minhag with no basis. You don't have to do that. Eisvei Abaye. So Abaye asked Rav Yosef the following question. Dvarnim hamutarim, when you have something that's mutter, ve'acherim nohagu b'hain isser, but other people have a minhag to be usser, to make it prohibited, and we'll continue with Abaye's question in the next video on Daf Nun Aleph Amud Aleph.